Hello and welcome to Property Money Trees, Maximising Property Values, the once a month show where I break down the steps of how to recognise, enhance, and then extract the values in property in order to create wealth. Would you like to find out how you can benefit from the steps of maximising property values? This is even if you don't own a property yet or have a deposit. If that's a yes, then you're in the right place to find out. My name is Patricia Faber, and although many know me for my work as a solicitor, on this show you will be getting the benefit of my 30 plus years worth of experience of maximising property values, experience which has given me a net worth in millions. So who might benefit from listening to this show? Literally anyone with an interest in creating property wealth. Hello and welcome back to yet another episode of Maximising Property Values. So I did say last month that I would be doing another episode on short leases as a strategy, and that I was going to go into the practical aspects of this in this particular episode. Oh, I am so excited about this. So what did I do? What was this example that I've promised to talk about? A very, very, very simple short lease purchase. However, it wasn't just that made the money. It was a combination of that together with a refurbishment and together with a changing of the layout of the flat. So it was those three things all together that actually brought the money. So to start off with, this was a flat which was bought in an auction. I'll talk about auction purchases in another episode. Well, actually, no, it wasn't bought in the auction. The auction finished and it was one of those lots that nobody had actually wanted. Anyway, looked at it. It had an apparent legal problem, which when I looked into it further, it wasn't a problem at all. So anyway, bought it. It was quite fortuitous, really. It was, felt quite lucky. Bought it for £200,000 and £150, and so this was in June of 2020. And then, because it was a one-bedroom flat, I knew immediately that it would lend itself perfectly to being changed into a two-bed without very much ado. So applied to the freeholder for this, and that was the time when everyone was doing sod all, absolutely nothing, and blaming it all on the pandemic. So it was due to coronavirus, we can't do this. Due to coronavirus, so-and-so who's meant to say yes or no isn't in the office, and we can't get hold of her. Due to coronavirus this, and due to coronavirus that. Anyway, all of that faffing about took us all the way through to November. And then on the 13th of November, I got a phone call to say, we're going to say yes, absolutely fine. You know what you've put through and you will be able to do what you want to do. So as part of the application, so the reason why I'd applied to the freeholder is because the lease, and I'll just read this bit out, the lease actually provided that the tenant would not damage, improve or alter the building or allow others to do so except for 1, the installation or removal of normal domestic things in the flat, 2, other non-structural alterations to the flat with the landlord's written permission. So there are lots of people who would just do this without applying for permission, but that's not how I actually do business, because whatever I do today, I want it to end today. I don't want it to come back tomorrow and come and like, just bite me. So yeah, I try and do everything that I'm doing, lawfully in the right way, so that I'm not then having to kind of like, backtrack and, make good, messes that I might have kind of like left behind. So that, like I said, took us through to November. Then we got the builders in. Oh gosh, that was so much fun. So they ripped everything out. They moved the kitchen out of the kitchen. The kitchen was actually quite big. It was 9 point something square meters. So we moved it out, moved it into the lounge, just a long one wall in the lounge. So the lounge itself was 5 meters by 3.5, something like that. So the kitchen went along the 3.5 length of the room, and there was just so much more space left for, kind of like, socializing and entertaining and all of that. Just that particular flat was just perfect for that, thing about, changing a one bedroom into a two bedroom, because I love flats. So I'm always looking out for like good flats to buy, and you'd be amazed at the number of flats where people have tried to do this, and they honestly, they've not done it well at all. And all that does is literally just put you off, because you feel as if there's no lounge. You just feel as if you're in a kitchen, because the kitchen units and everything else in the kitchen dominates the room. You honestly do not want to do that. Anyway, so um, before all of this happened, so on exchange, we were able to. No, it was an auction purchase, right? So we exchanged immediately. Yes, and the condition that the seller's solicitor put on us was that yes, they'd sign the Section 42 notice, but we mustn't serve it on the freeholder until we'd actually completed. So that was fine. My solicitor gave an undertaking that we would hold it. We'd hold the notice until then, and then we'd serve it once we completed. So we served the notice at the same time as an assignment of the benefit of the notice to my company, and that just went to them. And then they came back, asked a few questions. So this was like the freeholder, came back and asked a few questions. We answered those questions. They were happy that the notice was valid, and they then instructed their surveyor. The surveyor contacted me for access. I gave them access, and they came, they looked at stuff, and they went away. Then they sent us their Section 45 notice. So that's the counter offer. So I always lowball in my Section 42s, and then because it's up to the freeholder really to come back to you. You don't want it to be too low, because if it's ridiculously low, they don't have to do anything, and you would then be seen as not having served a valid notice, and then that would have been a waste of everyone's time. So I lowballed them, but it wasn't, lowballed to the point of being stupid. Anyway, they came back, they wanted a lot more. So I'd offered £8,000. The lease-advice.org calculator said 22 to 23. Their counter offer was for £20,480. The solicitor's fees, they said, would be 540, including VAT, so that was really low. Their surveyor's fees 750 plus VAT. My surveyor's fees were, I think, 360 plus VAT, but he was hopeless, so He's out of the picture. I wouldn't recommend him to do anything else for anybody. And in fact, he said to me, he said, "Oh, I'm going to send this to the freeholder." And I just went, "Don't you dare. You're acting for me, not the freeholder. You owe me a duty of confidentiality." So obviously, things just went completely south from there on, and I would never, ever, ever use him again. Anyway, so his fees were 360 plus VAT. Then we started to negotiate. They didn't want to budge. Then I moved again because this useless surveyor said between 12 and 17, expect to pay around 15. So I then thought, okay, fine, I'll offer them 15. And I offered them 15. They still said no. So I just thought, oh, well, it doesn't really matter. We'll park it in the tribunal. To go to the tribunal, it's £100, but please do not do this unless you have practical experience of going to tribunals. So anyway, parked it in the tribunal. That was in January. But then, because because of my belief in London and, or whatnot. So even though this was a joint venture, I decided then to buy out my joint venture partner because I thought, it's a good time to be buying flats. And this particular flat, when all the works were finished in February 2021, I got two estate agents in to value, the flat for sales purposes. And one of them said offers in excess of 375,000, and the other one said in the region of £375,000. So you can just see, this, although started out as a short lease, was actually a combination of, it being a short lease, it lending itself to an alteration from one bedroom flat from a one bedroom flat to a two bedroom flat, and also lending itself to a complete refurbishment. So, these are the sort of things that, you can do. And those are the sort of figures that, perhaps if you buy well, you buy, using the four principles of maximizing property values, which is you recognize where you can get really good value. And that does not mean below market prices, because as I've said in previous episodes, I've bought and paid above the asking price and still made lots of money. So one, you recognize. Two, you secure, because if you don't know how you're actually going to control that property, then there's no point in you recognizing the value in the property. You need to be able to control it, and you control it by securing it. And then you enhance. What are you going to do to enhance the value of the property? And then number 4 is how you exploit that exploding value in the property that you've got. So 1, you recognize. 2, you secure. 3, you enhance. And 4, you exploit. So once you know how to do all of those things, then you also can make, money from short leases. There's no rocket science behind it. So at the time of this episode, which is due to be published on the 1st of October 2021, the government is talking about reforming leaseholds and how they're renewed, and the premiums and ground rents and all of that. But we've not heard anything concrete about these things just yet. And so for that reason, I'm literally doing this episode as if the law is not changing, as if nothing, things are going to remain the way they are. But that's not the case. Things are going to be changing. We just don't know when. But I'm still buying. I'm buying short leases, and I'm literally still working within the current regime. I'm not kind of waiting for the reforms to come in, because I prefer certainty. it doesn't matter if I'm spending, a few £1,000s that maybe I might have saved if I'd waited, because you see, to me, certainty is worth a lot more than, £1,000 here or £2,000 there. So that is what I did with my short lease. So, any questions? Track me down on Clubhouse, and we can talk about it. It's really good, but I wouldn't touch anything that it doesn't have at least 60 years left on the lease, and also, in fact, I nearly forgot to say, but this particular flat, so it's parked in the tribunal, so it's not been renewed. But in the meantime, because I'm buying out my JV partner, I'm mortgaging the flat. So he bought it for cash. So we're now mortgaging it. It's not I can pay him off. And Land Bay is the lender that I'm using. And they're not fussed about how short your leases are, as long as it's not less than 55 years. So this particular lease is, I actually thought it was 63 years, but it isn't, it's 73. So the mortgage term is for 17 years, because they won't lend you beyond a period where the lease length will go below 55 years. It's so fascinating. So yeah, you can get a mortgage on them. They will, Land Bay will lend you, up to the point where your lease starts to go below 55 years. So that is plenty for most people. It's enough time to allow you to kind of sit down and save some money. Well, obviously with short leases, for every year that you wait, it's going to cost you more. So you have to just kind of weigh it all up and see what happens, and see what actually suits you best. Does it suit you best to kind of pay for it now, renew the lease and be done with it? Or does it suit you better to start saving? So every year, let's say you can save £5,000. It might take you 6 or 7 years, let's say 7 years at £5,000, that's £35,000. And then you can use that, if depending on how much you need to extend the lease, you can then use that to extend your lease. So normally, once you've made an offer in your section 42 notice and the freeholder comes back to you in their section 45 notice, they will normally ask you to pay a 10% deposit of what you've offered. In our particular situation, they didn't ask that. In other ones, yes, they do. But I think the solicitors on the other side just were not very good. But anyway, I'm not complaining. Suited me fine not to have to pay them a penny until everything was finalised. Their solicitor actually was not too good about things like this, but very good in terms of negotiating the lease terms, because again, I didn't like the lease that came with the property. So I was able to look at certain terms which we could actually change within the constraints of the law, and she was okay. And so we've got the new lease already agreed, apart from the premium that I've got to pay, or my company's got to pay, in order to extend the lease. So yes, any questions, track me down on Clubhouse and come and ask them. And but otherwise, yeah, all the very best. If you want to do these things, do them. They can be quite good. And like I say, honestly, you can get a mortgage on them. If you've got a good broker, it's something that you can do. You will often see adverts, estate agent adverts, for these short leases, where they'll say cash only. No. It doesn't have to be cash only. I'm literally at the moment buying another 2, and they were, cash only. I'm getting mortgages for them. And I told the estate agents as well, I said, don't worry, I can get mortgages for these. And they're going through at the moment. Don't know if they're going to complete, because obviously either party can pull out. up until the date of exchange. So, watch this space. I will obviously, keep people posted. I'll, post on Instagram. I'll talk about it on Clubhouse once I exchange, not before. And good luck. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope that at the very least you have found the talk thought-provoking. If you enjoyed the show, please do subscribe. In any event, please do rate and review the episode, because it would be great to read your feedback. Thank you very much, and hopefully see you next month.